Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the second edition of Douglas Now Live on June 16th, 2026. I'm Robert Preston Jr. live here in the DouglasNow.com studios. We did this a few minutes ago and we did not have any audio. I hope that that you can hear me now. I have a couple of folks who are going to let me know if in fact the audio is working. I'm sitting here looking at the microphone signal right now, and the microphone is picking up. So I am, I certainly hope that we are broadcasting the way that we should. Good deal. I'm getting word that the audio is working. So yes, we've actually been working on this since we got off the air last time. I appreciate the comments and I appreciate the feedback that we got. So again, we deleted the first video. Here we are now. The neat thing about where we are right now, I'm going to go over our local election results, but now we have statewide results. So when we were talking last time, not all of the elections were called, but now the important ones are. So what I did last time was I went over the local numbers first, then I went over the statewide numbers. Now we're going to flip that and go over the statewide numbers first, and then take a look at our local numbers. All right. So this is what we have so far with the runoff, and I want to talk about voter turnout and what have you from a local standpoint. So there are a couple things I want to get into, but first we're going to go ahead and take a look at this. Mike Collins has defeated Derek Dooley in the on the Republican U.S. Senate race, 370,658 votes to 294,127 votes. That's 56% to 44%. We don't have anything else. We got a couple of U.S. House of Representatives districts, but races, but none of those affect us. Now, for the statewide races, this is a little bit of a surprise. And it's not so much a surprise that Rick Jackson won, but it's a surprise to me by the margin. The Associated Press, with 93% of the votes counted, they have called the Republican runoff for governor, Rick Jackson, 353,791 votes over current Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, 317,571 votes. That's 53% to 47% roughly. So I looked at the polls last night before I went to bed, and depending upon which poll you looked at, Jackson was holding on to about a 2 to 3 percentage point advantage over Burt Jones, but it is about a 5 or 6% advantage here. So it's pretty close. But Rick Jackson is going to be the Republican nominee for governor. He will face Keisha Lance Bottoms in the governor's election in November. So Democratic runoff for insurance commissioner, Keisha Shawn Waits, 206,687 votes to DeAndre Mathis, 144,311 votes, 58.9% to 41.1%. We're going to go over these numbers here in a few minutes. Our local numbers, that election tied. Ms. Waits and Mr. Mathis tied here in Coffee County. The Democratic runoff for labor commissioner, Nikki Porcher, 220,323 votes to Michelle Sanchez, 136,302 votes. So 62% to 38%. Lieutenant Governor on the Democratic ticket, Josh McLaurin over Nabila Parks, 199,746 votes to 163,788 votes. On the Republican side, Greg Dolezal, 365,851 votes to John F. Kennedy's 309,216 votes. Still got a few votes outstanding. 96% of the votes are in. That's not going to change any. That's 54% to 46%. So Dolezal versus McLaurin in November. The runoff for Public Service Commissioner on the Republican side, Josh Tolbert, 362,987 votes to Bobby Mahan's 244,088 votes. So that's roughly 60-40. School superintendent, this was a close one. This might be, or this is the closest one on the ballot, but incumbent Richard Woods has prevailed, 336,687 votes to Fred Bubba Longrear's 317,233 votes. That's roughly 52 to 48% of the vote there. So when we were on last time, when we had no audio, this election was a little bit closer than that, and of course nobody was calling that yet. But yeah, you got 95% of the votes counted, but you know, the outstanding votes are not going to swing that election. Secretary of State Penny Brown Reynolds, 230,221 votes to Dana Barrett's 133,290 votes. So you're looking at roughly 63 to 37% there. Tim Fleming over Vernon Jones. This was the largest margin of victory in any of these elections that we've talked about so far. 420,101 to Vernon Jones's 231,092 votes. So you're looking at 65 to 35. The AP actually called this race minutes after polls closed. As soon as numbers started coming in, they had this election called. Fleming ran away with it. So Fleming over Jones for Secretary of State, which means Fleming will face Penny Brown Reynolds in November. But yeah, let's take a look at the governor's election again. 364,037 votes for Rick Jackson, 328,020 votes for Burt Jones, 53 to 47%. This was a case of two financial heavyweights slugging it out to see who was going to write the most checks, who was going to spend the most money. Rick Jackson did that hands down. For the most part, he self-funded that as well. He is a billionaire. So whatever he spent on this election was a drop in the bucket to his net worth. Now, both of these candidates came to Douglas, had an opportunity to speak with both of them. And there was I will tell you this, my impression, there was a confidence in Rick Jackson, a very matter-of-fact demeanor that he had that Burt Jones did not have. I did not find Burt Jones to be a very engaging or interesting person or candidate. Rick Jackson, a little bit different. He was, again, if you have it, don't deny it. Don't act like you don't. All right? Don't act like you don't. And both of these gentlemen are incredibly wealthy. All right? But Burt Jones tried to downplay that and step away from it a little bit and present himself in a very disingenuous light, I thought. Whereas Rick Jackson says, I've got it. I'm trying to spend it. This is how I choose to spend it. And this is the difference that I want to make. And I think that resonated with voters a little more. So it was that was a very interesting election. And now we're going to see what happens in November. So that's where we are. So Rick Jackson over Burt Jones, Keisha Shonwaits over DeAndre Mathis, Nikki Porter over Michelle Sanchez, Josh McLaurin over Nabila Parks, Greg Dolezal over John Kennedy, Josh Tolbert over Bobby Mahan, Richard Woods over Fred Longrear, Penny Brown Reynolds over Dana Barrett, and Tim Fleming over Vernon Jones. So let's take a quick break. When I come back, we will go over these numbers locally. Couple of interesting things. There was one election that was separated by 5 votes. Another one tied. And actually what happened here, not all of Coffee County's elections went the way that the state went. For example, Burt Jones was a big winner in Coffee County, not so much statewide. We'll be back in just a second. Let's take a break. When someone is injured in an accident, they need 3 things: answers, a plan, and a legal team they can trust. That's what you get at the law office of Bruce Edwards in Douglas, along with a healthy dose of old school toughness and modern strategy to boot. We are here to help. Give us a call and let us work for you. Welcome back. Robert Preston Jr. here, live on DouglasNow.com. I did not mention this when we started. I apologize for my dress tonight. I got off work about 7 o'clock. I didn't feel like going home and changing my clothes to come right back to town to get these election results. So I stayed in my t-shirt. I will wear a t-shirt on here, but I try to make it a little more appropriate t-shirt. Although, you know, the American flag on election night, could probably do worse, but I could also do a lot better. Let's take a look here at our local returns. Now, I had our first video that we did were plagued with problems. First of all, we had no audio, but second of all, I got a call during the stream that there was a problem with our election returns, our local returns. So after I got off, while Ryan Hanna, our engineer, worked on the audio, I went back to the elections office to get updated numbers. So I was sitting there thinking, well, I'm glad we didn't have any audio because I did not give out complete returns. As it turns out, I did, in fact, give out the complete election numbers. There was something happening with the computer. I am not smart enough to explain exactly what that was, but there was a problem with the way some of the ballots showed up in the computer when they uploaded and went back to, and I'm not picking on Bridgetown, it's just where it happened. It happened in Bridgetown with their poll pads, but the numbers were correct. The number of votes were correct. There was something that didn't show up right with the number of ballots, but when they downloaded everything, and these ballots don't get lost, they don't disappear from their computer. They didn't have a good connection out at in Bridgetown, a good internet connection. Once they reran everything from Bridgetown in the elections office, they found out that, yes, I mean, obviously those ballots were still there, but the numbers did not change, right? So it messed up a little bit on the number of ballots, but the number of votes was correct. So I thought I had the wrong numbers, but I didn't. So let's take a look at what we had here. We had a 12.07% voter turnout, 2,902 voters cast ballots out of 24,038 registered voters. I actually am surprised that it's double digits voter turnout. I did not think that would happen. We had 1,738 ballots cast on election day. We had 1,123 ballots cast in advance voting. There were 41 absentee votes, absentee ballots sent in by mail. No provisionals showing up here on our election report. So I'm going to go over these races as they are listed here on the sheet. So in the U.S. Senate for on the Republican ticket, Mike Collins over Derek Dooley, 1,837 to 582. Of course, that's the way the statewide election went. For governor, this one did not go the way the statewide numbers went. Burt Jones, very popular here in Coffee County, 1,448 votes to Rick Jackson's 1,015 votes. For lieutenant governor, Greg Dolezal, 1,210 votes to John F. Kennedy's 1,205. 5 votes separated Dolezal and Kennedy, basically a tie here in Coffee County. All right, so you see the margin of victory for Dolezal was much, much larger statewide, but here it was basically a wash in Coffee County, 1,210 to 1,205. For lieutenant governor on the Democratic ticket, McLaurin, 272 votes to Parks, 146. Secretary of State on the Republican side, Vernon Jones, a lot more popular here in Coffee County than he was throughout the state. Fleming still won, but it was much, much closer. Fleming got 1,271 votes to Vernon Jones, 1,026 votes. Secretary of State on the Democratic ticket, Penny Brown Reynolds, 255 to Dana Barrett, 168. So that election went the same way as it did statewide. Commissioner of Insurance on the Democratic ballot. This is the one that tied. DeAndre Mathis, 209. Keisha Shawn Waits, 209. So 418 ballots total cast in that race. and they were split 209 to 209. Once again, a lot of people think my vote doesn't count. One vote doesn't matter. All right. Now, this election, of course, feeds into the statewide returns, but one vote does matter. All right. This is an example of how, particularly in a county, one vote does in fact make a difference. It doesn't happen every year. A lot of times it doesn't happen every 5 or 6 years, but when it does happen, it can be significant. So yes, your vote does count. One vote can in fact make a difference. And if this was a county-wide race, one vote would make a tremendous difference. But 209 votes, both for DeAndre Mathis and Keisha Shawn Waits here in Coffee County. For school superintendent, this one was close. Bubba Longrear won Coffee County, but not by very many votes, but he did win 1,195 to 1,153 over Richard Woods. Of course, as we just saw, Mr. Woods has won that election statewide. Commissioner of Labor on the Democratic side, Nikki Porcher, 293 votes to Michelle Sanchez, 125. Public Service Commission on the Republican ticket, District 5, Bobby Mahan, 997, Josh Tolbert, 1,176. Those are our local numbers. Again, 12% voter turnout. I really wish more people would vote. And as you can see here, with one election separated by 5 votes, another one tied, and then another one separated by just a few votes. This, one vote can, in fact, make a difference. I also have a lot of people tell me, well, I'm not going to vote because it doesn't matter. All right. They're going to do what they want to do anyway. People don't trust the voting process. They don't trust our electoral system here. Well, it doesn't matter what I vote. You know, it's rigged and they're going to choose who they want to choose. Well, you know what? First of all, I don't buy that. Second of all, if that is in fact the case, you're still not out anything by going to vote. You're not out anything. But I've said this before, and I'll say it again, that turnout wins elections. And when you're looking at 12% voter turnout here in a runoff, that's not enough people to choose the direction of the party. Take, for example, on the Republican governor's race. The governor is the figurehead, if you will, of the party. All right. So you've got 12% of the voters here in Coffee County decided to be the ones who chose the direction of the Republican Party and to express the wishes of the Republican Party or the wishes of Coffee County for the Republican Party. See, you can make a case that it's more important to vote in the primary than it is in the general election. What happens in the primary is you get a more honest glimpse of a candidate and what that candidate truly believes and the direction the candidate truly wants to go. Because in a general election, everybody moves to the center, all right? Right moves to the center, left moves to the center, and you tend to dilute your message and water down exactly what you would like to do because you're trying to appeal to the most number of voters. All right. But when you're dealing in your party, when you're dealing exclusively with your constituency, you get a more honest snapshot of what a candidate wants to do and the beliefs of a candidate. So when you vote in a primary, you're saying this is the direction we want our party to go. And a lot of people, in particular, you're looking at a midterm, but listen, these midterm elections are going to be tough, right? And I think in November, it's going to be a bloodbath between the two parties. It really is. The Democrats are licking their chops. The Republicans are getting ready for for what looks like it could be a pretty bad showing. All right. There's a lot of time between now and November. We'll see what happens. But most Republican pundits are bracing themselves, particularly at the national level, for a pretty bad election. All right. But when you vote in the primary, that's where you pilot the ship, if you will, in the direction you want your party to go. And unfortunately, a lot of people do not take that seriously. I thought a low turnout would benefit Burt Jones more than it would Rick Jackson. And I know Burt was kind of hoping that they would have a much less of a turnout than they would typically want in an election. And it's been raining up in Atlanta. It's been raining around the state. And rain, bad weather keeps people inside. But certainly I would have thought that that it would have been a little bit closer than this. And you couldn't hear my numbers that I was giving when we went off the air the first time. But Jones narrowed the gap on Jackson a little bit, to the point that when I signed off and headed back to the elections office, I thought, as I refreshed and as I continued to take a look at what was happening, that Jones had a really good chance to overtake Jackson. I really did, as some of the later returns came in. But Jackson held on to his advantage and won 53 to 47%. So now we get to see what happens in November. We always take a look at our tower cam. Let's take a break. When we come back, we will look at the darkness, because that tell you our 4 lights and the darkness. It's about quit raining now, so we won't even get to see any of that. Let's take a break. We'll be back in just a minute. A car accident can have serious consequences far beyond the initial crash. Your life and the lives of your loved ones can be turned upside down. Missed work, lost wages, totaled vehicles, and insurance companies that don't want to help. You need a law firm that will fight for you. You've come to the right place. Welcome back. Robert Preston Jr. here on Douglas Now Live, going over our runoff election coverage. We've talked about our statewide races. We've gone over the local numbers and compared them a little bit to what happened statewide. We did not have any local elections on the ballot, so everything was statewide. But some interesting numbers, some interesting trends, and some interesting matchups as we head into November. The bottom line here is, if you're sick and tired of campaigning, you're sick and tired of all the mailers and the TV commercials and the pop-up ads and all that stuff, it's going to be a rough next 4 or 5 months, because it's only going to get worse. Let's take a look at our tower cam again. You see clouds, our 4 lights, our 2 that flash off in the distance, our same 4 lights that are on here. You can see the clouds. We have had a couple of rough days weather-wise here, a lot of rain. It's hard to believe that just a few short weeks ago, a significant portion of southeast Georgia was on fire. Now it feels like a significant portion of southeast Georgia is underwater. So we went from one extreme to the other. The drought's not over yet. It's going to take more water than this, but we are certainly glad that our fortunes with as far as precipitation goes have changed a little bit. I'd like to have some nice weather, though. I would like for it to not be 5,000 degrees like it was on Saturday. It was so hot Saturday. It was so hot. And when it gets hot, we have these pop-up showers in the afternoons. But what's rolled through here the last couple of days have been a little bit more than that. But it looks like the rain's moved off for a little while tonight, and we shall see what tomorrow holds. But again, not a lot to see. Few clouds. It looks kind of neat, though. It looks as though the clouds are marching across your screen. I don't know if you can see that as clearly as I can here, but it is kind of neat. But yeah, dark and wet. That's the weather. And for some of these candidates, it has been a very, very dark night. For others, it has been the brightest of bright. One of the things I enjoy about elections, it takes courage to jump in an election. You're putting yourself out there in the public, in front of everyone, and it's win or take all. You win in public, you lose in public. It's a big risk. It's a big gamble. All right. And I would imagine that winning an election there's no greater high than that. Losing an election, that'd be a tough one. That'd be a tough one to take. You do see candidates bounce back. I would imagine we have not heard the last of Burt Jones. Bert is going to, he will be back. All right. He certainly doesn't need the money, but Bert will be back in some shape, form, or fashion. His career is not over. Now, what that will be, it remains to be seen. But he got to the next to highest office in the state. He is not going to give up yet. So whether it will be a rematch for the governor's office, for the governor's mansion in 4 years, I guess a lot of that will depend on what happens in November, um, or or he decides to seek some other office. But I do not think we've heard the last of Burt Jones. So those are our election numbers here, both in Douglas and Coffee County and then statewide. We get a little break from some of this electoral mess, but I promise you the break will not last long. Nothing we can do about this election. 88% of the voters in Coffee County decided not to vote in this runoff. I hope that all of those 88, or all the individuals that make up that 88%, will in turn go out and vote in November. We got a few months to get ready. We're going to be inundated with messages and flyers and promises and more stuff. But research your candidates, look through the fluff, and educate yourself as much as you possibly can. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. Just go vote. You got 4 or 5 months to figure it out. It's plenty of time. Thank y'all for streaming. We'll see you next time.